July 25, 1944. 5:42 a.m. A fog-stitched dawn hangs low over the hedgerow country outside St. Lo, Normandy. Wet earth, the metallic tang of fuel, and the toothy click of tank tracks grinding through churned mud. The sky is a flat pewter sheet. The shell-scarred fields breathe steam into the chill. Lieutenant James "Jimmy" Mallory wipes condensation from his goggles with the back of his glove, leans close to the periscope of his M4 Sherman and listens. The engine's steady rumble, the distant rat-a-tat of artillery, then the thin, urgent voice of his radio operator repeating, "Cobra starts in 15, Lieutenant. Bombers are on schedule." Mallory's Sherman, bronze star earned yet unnamed, with its faded white invasion star and the number 3 chalked on the turret, smells of hot oil and sweat. Its 75mm M3 gun rests low in the bustle. The coaxial .30 caliber stutters when Private Delgado tests the trigger. Inside the cramped hull, the crew is a clatter of nerves and practiced motions. Mallory, youthful face browned by diesel smoke, Sergeant Earl Doc Finley, the veteran loader with a chipped molar and a habit of humming hymns under fire, Corporal Thomas Skipper Reeves, the nervous driver who can smell rain as if it were a person, and radio man Private Samir Abbas, fingers forever ink-stained from logbooks and grease. Above them, the sky is not empty but full, not with hope but with iron. Waves of B-17s and B-24s, the big American bombers whose roofs are a moving, groaning forest of turrets and rivets. They come like a promise and a threat at once, their engines drowning the rustle of hedgerows. The mission order is simple in ink, complex in thought. Operation Cobra, the U.S. First Army's planned hammer blow to cleave open the German front and let armored divisions pour through. For Mallory and hundreds like him, simple means go where the bombs make holes and then push until the world tilts. Across the fields, German anti-tank positions crouch like bad teeth in hedgerow craters. Camouflaged panthers and a few king tigers hunker behind clipped hedges, their crews sipping bitter coffee, confident in thick armor and heavier guns. Weeks earlier, high command in Berlin had laughed at the gringos' tin boxes. A Nazi officer, a captain with a polished cap and the arrogance of doctrine, might have scoffed. The Sherman is undergunned, its sloping armor a joke compared to the German 75s and 88s. But doctrine is brittle when faced with mud, attrition, and the Americans' capacity to replace men and metal. Near Mallory's position, the 3rd Armored Division's maintenance crews, grease-streaked, cigarette-burned, tighten tracks, swap out final drives, and patch slit-up drive sprockets with welded hands. A tank that can't move is no threat. Mobility is a kind of invincibility. The Sherman's continental radial growls to life more reliably than many of the heavier German designs. It will start in the cold, it will crawl through shell holes, and when a track tears, the crew can fix it in the field. That logistical truth has not yet become a headline in Berlin. It is still a fact in Mallory's muscles and the metal smell of his tank. At 6:07, the first wave of heavy bombers breaks the dawn with a thunder so near the ground that hedgerows shudder. The concussion is a physical thing. Dirt and small stones rain down, birds lift in a spray of feathers, and for a moment the world becomes a drumbeat of falling metal. Mallory grins without meaning to, some motion of the jaw that is not bravado so much as shock. "There she goes," Doc mutters, because in war there are few words left that mean anything fresh. When the smoke clears and the RAF and USAF columns move off to regroup, Mallory's platoon punches through. The hedgerows that once gave cover now red like a broken spine, gaps where farm walls used to stand, cattle stunned in fields, the odd bicycle without a rider. The Shermans come in numbers, platoons, companies, then a rolling wave of tracks and steel. Where a Panther may be 1, a Sherman is 6, 12, 30, and more arrive because the American factories in Ohio and Michigan and the Ford plant at Willow Run do not sleep. Each Sherman may be outgunned in a single duel, but the duel is rarely the whole story. On the eastern flank, Corporal Muller of Panzer Lehr squints through a slit and sees the green tide. He will later describe it as a moving forest, because the tanks do not come alone. They are escorted by armored half-tracks, flame-throwing crocodiles in later fights, engineers with Bangalore torpedoes, and infantry riding the hulls like fishermen on a boat. The Americans can lose a tank and simply drive another into the gap. German logistics, already fraying, cannot replace Panthers and Tigers at that rate. Ammunition depots have been bombed, synthetic fuel plants are under assault, the line that once held like iron now looks stitched with thread. Mallory's Sherman punches through a ruined lane and finds a Panther tucked in a hollow beside the road. The Panther's main gun is a long black finger, its crew trained to believe a single shot could stop an American's day. Mallory uses the terrain, edges in close. Where the Panther's long gun is less effective, the Sherman's mobility matters. Doc loads with practiced hands. The shot lands under the Panther's turret ring, metal screams. The Panther burns, a reluctant pyre, and 4 Shermans around Mallory's tank circle to contain the wreck while infantry dismount and clear the hedgerow. The battle that morning will produce no single banner moment of heroics. Rather, it will be 1,000 small choices. When to advance, when to button up, when to fix a track in the middle of a field. It will be a catalog of reliability. A Sherman that starts, a crew that survives to fight again, replacements arriving like an industrial tide. The German officer's laugh remains in the air like a bad perfume, easy to remember and suddenly hard to justify. September 1942. Berlin. Inside a marble-tiled conference room at the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler leans over a large table covered in maps of North Africa and the Eastern Front. Around him stand officers from the Wehrmacht and the Waffen-SS, their polished boots clicking against the stone floor as they shift nervously. A photograph lies on the table, an Allied tank, rounded turret, squat hull, and painted white star on its side. Hitler taps it with his finger, smirking. "The Americaner," he says, his voice sharp and theatrical. "They build these by the thousand, but they burn like matchsticks. Look at this. Tommy Cooker, yes?" The generals chuckle softly, wary to disagree. In that moment, the Sherman is dismissed. A toy, a curiosity of mass production, nothing more. At the same time, on the front lines, German crews are reporting encounters with these machines in Tunisia. The desert sun glares off olive drab paint as columns of Shermans roll through dust clouds. To the Panzer veterans of the Afrika Korps, the M4 is strange, tall, almost clumsy looking, its armor thinner than the Panzer IV, its gun lacking the fearsome bite of the German 75mm. But they notice something else. The Shermans don't stop coming. When one is hit, another appears minutes later. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, watching from a ridge near Medellin, notes the difference. "They fight like factories, not armies," he says quietly to his aide. "For every one we destroy, 5 more appear on the horizon." The myth of German invincibility still holds in 1942. Tigers and Panthers, sleek and deadly, rule the propaganda reels. German engineering, precision, perfection, pride, is the backbone of the Reich's self-image. But what Hitler and his ministers fail to grasp is that the war will not be won by perfection. It will be won by production. Across the Atlantic, Henry Ford's Willow Run plant in Michigan hums day and night. Conveyor belts stretch longer than city blocks. Sparks from welding torches flash like fireworks against steel frames. The US has turned automobile assembly into tank creation. Within a few hours, a bare hull becomes a fully operational Sherman, painted, armed, and ready for transport. Back in Berlin, reports from the Eastern Front begin to tell a different story. The T-34, the Soviet tank Hitler once mocked, is cutting through German lines in the mud and snow. The Sherman, soon to arrive in thousands via Lend-Lease, reinforces the pattern. The Allies' machines are simpler, but they don't break. A tank that can run, fight, and be repaired in a field workshop will outlast one that spends half its time waiting for spare parts. By late 1943, Allied intelligence intercepts indicate growing German concern. The Americans have landed in Sicily. In Italy, Shermans climb mountain roads that German tanks can barely traverse. Photographs show them crossing rivers on pontoon bridges, forming armored columns that stretch from one valley to the next. Hitler rages in private briefings. They are flooding Europe with these machines. Where do they get them all? He never fully understands the answer, that America's greatest weapon is not the Sherman itself, but the system that makes it. Every tank has interchangeable parts. Every division has dedicated recovery units. Every factory can rebuild what was lost. And so the laughter in Berlin fades into a grim silence. Meanwhile, on the Western Front, Lieutenant Mallory's tank battalion pushes deeper through Normandy's hedgerows. News filters through the radio. German lines are collapsing south of St. Lo. The Americans are breaking free of the bocage. The enemy's vaunted armor, Tigers, Panthers, Stooges, are retreating, outnumbered, outflanked, outsupplied. Mallory's gunner, Doc Finley, watches a column of burning German tanks from his turret. "They said we couldn't stand up to 'em," he mutters, wiping soot from his face. "Guess they never counted on how many of us there'd be." The Sherman's strength isn't its armor or gun, it's the fact that it's always there, always running, always moving forward. In war, reliability becomes destiny. As Mallory's tank crests another ridge and the morning mist begins to thin, He sees what no one in Berlin ever imagined possible, a field full of Shermans, stretching to the horizon like a green tide. Engines roaring, guns glinting, the unstoppable machine of American industry now made flesh and steel. And somewhere, far behind enemy lines, the echo of Hitler's laugh fades into the smoke of his burning dreams. August 7, 1944. Near Mortain, France. The morning air hangs thick with mist and the scent of cordite. A layer of smoke hugs the fields where apple orchards once stood, and the ground trembles under the steady thunder of engines. The 2nd SS Panzer Division Das Reich has launched a desperate counterattack, Operation Luttich, aiming to slice through the American advance and reach the coast, cutting off Patton's breakout from Normandy. Lieutenant Mallory's Sherman rumbles into position along a hedgerow-lined road outside Mortain, its olive paint now scarred by weeks of fighting. Inside the cramped hull, the crew works in wordless rhythm, each man knowing the other's next move by sound alone. The radio crackles with distant orders, half lost under static. Hold position, enemy armor approaching from the east. Multiple Panthers spotted. Panthers, Mallory repeats quietly. Of course. Through his periscope, he sees them emerge from the haze, dark, angular shapes crawling up the far slope. The German tanks move like predators, deliberate, confident, their long 75mm guns trained low. In contrast, the Shermans look almost gentle, smaller, rounder, their guns shorter. But numbers are on Mallory's side. 27 Shermans line the ridge, engines idling like a chorus of restrained thunder. The first Panther fires. The shot slams into the earth a few meters short, throwing up a fountain of dirt that rattles against the Sherman's armor. "Driver, forward!" Mallory shouts. The tank lurches ahead, treads biting deep into mud. Finley rams a shell into the breach. "He loaded," he yells. Mallory hesitates, then nods. "On that ridge, fire." The gun recoils violently, the sound a bone-deep concussion. The shell bursts against the Panther's glassy plate. A bright flash, no penetration. Ricochet. Finley curses. "Switch to AP." The Panther answers. Its 75mm gun punches through the lead Sherman of another platoon. A flash of white light, a dull roar, and then fire. The tank burns instantly, black smoke curling into the low sky. Inside, the crew has no time to escape. The remaining Shermans pull tighter, angling their armor, spreading out. "Doc, give me smoke." Mallory orders. The loader hurls a canister out the side hatch. Thick white fog spills into the field, obscuring their movement. "Driver, left flank, use the hedge." Reeves grits his teeth and slams the lever forward. The tank veers hard left, treads grinding against roots. Through the smoke, Mallory glimpses the Panther's flank exposed. Fetty, fire! The 75mm round slams into the Panther's side armor with a flash that lights the interior like lightning. Flames burst from the engine vents. The tank jerks once, then goes still. "Hit confirmed." Finley yells. Cheers erupt over the radio net, quickly drowned by another explosion. A second Sherman bursts into flames, then a third. The Panthers are cutting them down at range. But the Shermans keep coming. The Germans, trained to fight elite tank duels, are caught off guard by the American tempo. When a Sherman is destroyed, two more advance. When one stalls, engineers rush in under fire to repair it. The battlefield becomes a factory floor of motion. Repair, reload, replace, repeat. By noon, Mortain is an inferno. Black columns of smoke rise in every direction. The Germans have lost a dozen Panthers, not to superior firepower, but to relentless pursuit. The Americans refuse to disengage, pushing through wreckage and burning crops. From the German perspective, it is chaos. Hauptmann Wilhelm Kruger, commander of a Panther company, later recalls in his diary. "They came in waves, green, brown, gray, the Shermans. We destroyed one, and three more appeared. Their artillery fell with mechanical rhythm. Their aircraft circled like hawks. Our tanks fought bravely, but we were drowning in machines." As the day wears on, Mallory's tank runs low on ammunition. The crew's faces are streaked with grime, hands burned from shell casings. They've lost friends, men they shared cigarettes and letters with just hours before. But when they crest the final ridge, they see something extraordinary, the horizon shimmering with more Shermans, reinforcements from the 3rd Armored Division. "God, there's no end to 'em," Doc whispers. That, Mallory thinks, is the point. The Panther might win duels. The Tiger might inspire fear. But the Sherman wins wars. Because when one burns, another rises. When one crew falls, another takes its place. And the factories in Detroit, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh will not stop, not until Europe itself is free of the iron laughter from Berlin. Mallory leans against the periscope, eyes on the battlefield below, and mutters the truth that every German tanker is now learning the hard way. You can outgun us, sure, but you can't outbuild us. August 20th, 1944. Somewhere west of Falaise, France. The battlefield hums with aftermath. Charred Panthers lie half-sunken in ditches, their hulls twisted and smoking. The air is a haze of cordite and the heavy, sweet stench of burnt fuel. American engineers and medics weave between the wrecks, patching roads, pulling survivors from craters, and marking tanks that can still be salvaged. In the distance, the thunder of artillery fades into a strange kind of silence. The Battle of the Falaise Pocket is ending, and the German 7th Army is collapsing. Lieutenant Mallory Sherman, its olive paint now blackened and chipped, idles near the edge of a ruined farmhouse. The crew is exhausted, running on canned beans, cigarettes, and adrenaline. Finley's hands tremble slightly as he reloads the coaxial machine gun. The skin of his knuckles is torn from constant work. Reeves leans against the transmission housing, half asleep but still alert enough to feel the vibration of the engine like a heartbeat. They're alive, that's all that matters. As Mallory steps out of the hatch, the sight that greets him stretches for miles. Hundreds of Shermans, some intact, some gutted by fire, dotting the landscape like green ghosts. Mechanics crawl over them, tightening bolts, swapping engines, welding armor patches. Fuel trucks roll by, flanked by jeeps carrying fresh ammunition. Above, the steady drone of C-47 transport planes crosses the sky, towing gliders full of supplies. War has become a production line. At the center of it all, a tank depot runs like an open-air factory. Bulldozers push wrecks aside. Crews pull usable parts from burnt-out hulls. The Americans have mastered something the Germans never could: logistical resurrection. A tank destroyed today might return to the field tomorrow with a new engine and another coat of paint. Every Sherman is a puzzle of replaceable parts, built with interchangeability in mind, bolts that fit every hull, engines that swap between models, gears that match any drivetrain. Nearby, Sergeant Finley wipes his forehead and mutters to no one in particular, "We ain't soldiers anymore, we're moving parts in the same damn machine." Mallory half smiles. Yeah, but it's one hell of a machine. Across the Atlantic, the heart of that machine beats in steel and fire. Detroit, Michigan. Willow Run. The River Rouge plant. The presses never stop. The night shift works under the glow of sodium lights as cranes swing armor plates onto assembly jigs. The air smells of oil, hot steel, and coffee. Women in bandanas and coveralls rivet hull seams, their faces streaked with soot. Men in coveralls guide engines into place using chain hoists and chalk lines. On the walls, posters read, "A tank a day keeps Hitler away." Supervisors with clipboards move like conductors through an orchestra of sparks and pistons. Each worker knows their task by heart: one bolt, one weld, one wire harness. But together, they create something far greater: a tank rolling off the line every 28 minutes. The same process that built cars for families now builds weapons for survival. And every completed Sherman, each stamped, tested, and crated, carries a name scrawled by the workers: Baby Ruth, Rosie's Revenge, Hell on Tracks. A journalist once asked one of the women welders, "Do you think about the men who'll drive these?" She paused, wiped her brow, and said, "Every time I strike a weld, I hope it holds long enough for him to get home." Back in France, that wish holds true. Mallory Sherman, rebuilt twice already, joins the advance toward the same. They roll past villages half liberated, children waving tricolor flags, old men saluting with tears in their eyes. For a moment, the war feels like it's tipping. Germany's once invincible panzers are now wrecks littering the fields of Normandy. At night, as Mallory sits by the tank's track with a tin of coffee, he thinks of the endless factories across the ocean, of workers who've never seen France but have changed it forever. He knows their hands, though he'll never meet them: the welders, the riveters, the machinists who've built his second skin of steel. Finley looks over from the turret and says quietly, "You ever think what keeps us alive?" Mallory glances at the Sherman, its armor still warm from the day's fight. "Yeah," he says. "Someone in Detroit who doesn't even know my name." The wind carries the faint echo of distant engines, another column of tanks moving east. The war is far from over, but something fundamental has shifted. The Allies no longer fight for inches, they fight with inevitability. For the first time, the German war machine, once fueled by arrogance and precision, is being crushed not by luck, but by math. And in the factory-lit night across the sea, the next wave of Shermans is already being born. December 17, 1944. Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Snow drifts through the pines like falling ash. The cold gnaws through wool and steel alike, freezing the oil in engines and the blood in fingertips. For Lieutenant Mallory's tank crew, the world has turned white, a graveyard disguised as a winter wonderland. The Battle of the Bulge has begun. They were supposed to be resting after the push through France. Instead, they've been thrown into chaos. German panzers breaking through thin American lines, armored columns clawing their way toward the Meuse River. And somewhere in that fog and snow, the legendary Tiger IIs, the King Tigers, are prowling. The radio hums with panic and confusion. Enemy armor sighted near Saint-Vith. We need reinforcements. Mallory grips the intercom mic. That's us, boys. Button up. The Sherman growls to life, exhaust steaming in the bitter air. Inside, it's a metal coffin warmed only by the engine's heat. The crew works with numb fingers, shells stacked by feel, belts of .30 caliber rounds coiled like snakes across the floor. Finley breaks the silence. You think this thing can take a King Tiger? Mallory doesn't answer right away. He glances through the periscope, at the white world ahead, at the snow-dusted trees, at the tracks of something much heavier than their own. Finally he says, "We're not here to take it. We're here to stop it." Moments later, the woods erupt. A shell tears through the tree line, splintering timber like matchsticks. Another slams into the frozen earth nearby, showering the Sherman in snow and dirt. Reeves jerks the tank into cover behind a small ridge. The crew's breath fogs the inside of the turret. Through the haze, Mallory spots it, a silhouette at 600 yards, low and monstrous, its gun barrel stretching out like a spear. A King Tiger. The German Colossus. The Tiger's main gun fires again. The round screams overhead, missing by inches. The concussion rocks the Sherman. Back up. Flank left. Mallory yells. The Sherman lurches, treads screeching over ice. Finley slams an armor-piercing round into the breach. Loaded. Wait for it, Mallory murmurs, tracking the Tiger's slow turn through his sight. The beast is too heavy to pivot quickly. For a fleeting second, its side armor glints through the snow. Fire! The Sherman's gun roars. The shot streaks across the clearing. It hits, sparks flying off the Tiger's hull, but it doesn't penetrate. The German tank keeps moving, methodical, unshaken. Then, from behind, two more Shermans emerge from the tree line. One fires smoke, the other speeds forward, drawing the Tiger's aim. The German crew fires again, a direct hit, and the lead Sherman vanishes in fire and snow. But as the Tiger turns, Mallory's gunner has his window. Hit the track, he yells. The 75mm shell strikes low, biting into the Tiger's left tread. Metal shrieks. The massive tank lurches and stops, immobilized. Reload. He shell. Finley's hands move faster than thought. Mallory adjusts his aim. Another round fires, this time into the Tiger's engine deck. A dull thud, then fire. Orange light blooms from its rear, spreading until the whole machine is swallowed in flame. Target neutralized, someone shouts over the radio. Inside the Sherman, nobody cheers. They just breathe again. Slow, shaky human breaths. As night falls, the forest quiets. The snow glows faintly blue under the moon. The burning Tiger crackles in the distance, its silhouette distorted by heat. Mallory climbs from the hatch, his breath a white cloud in the freezing dark. The battlefield is littered with wrecks, American and German, friend and foe alike. But something about this victory feels different. The Tiger was the symbol of German invincibility, the pinnacle of their engineering pride. And tonight, a Sherman, outmatched, outgunned, but not outlasted, brought it down. Finley joins him on the hull, rubbing his hands for warmth. You think Hitler's still laughing now? Mallory watches the flames dance on the horizon. No, he says. But I bet he's listening. In the cold silence that follows, the sound of distant engines grows stronger, the low, steady rumble of more Shermans moving up through the snow, an endless tide of steel and will. From the Ardennes to the Rhine, and soon to the gates of Germany itself, they will keep coming. Because the Sherman isn't just a tank. It's a message. A message written in oil, sweat, and blood. You can't kill what never stops coming. March 1945. West bank of the Rhine River, Germany. The air smells of diesel and victory. After months of grinding advance, From Normandy's beaches through the frozen hell of the Ardennes, the Allies have reached Germany's doorstep. The Rhine, once thought an unbreachable line, now glitters under the dull gray sky, reflecting the endless procession of American armor stretching from horizon to horizon. On the east bank, the remnants of the Wehrmacht dig in, clinging to what's left of their fatherland. Hitler's once proud panzer divisions are ghosts, half-fueled, half-manned, and running on desperation. And across from them, the laughable Sherman tanks are lining up by the hundreds. Colonel James Polk of the 3rd Armored Division surveys the crossing site at Remagen. The Ludendorff Bridge, somehow still standing despite German demolition attempts, looms ahead, trembling under the weight of artillery fire. Every explosion threatens to send it crashing into the Rhine. But the Americans don't hesitate. Send the Shermans across, Polk orders. Engines roar. Tracks clatter against steel. The first M4 rolls onto the bridge, its crew gripping controls with white knuckles as German shells crash nearby. One tank after another follows, hundreds of tons of metal rolling into enemy soil, defying the Reich's last barrier. From the far bank, German spotters watch in disbelief. They had been told the American tank was weak, thin armor, poor gun, no match for German craftsmanship. But what they see now is something no engineering chart could measure: relentless scale. For every Sherman destroyed, 3 more appear. By dusk, the bridge is theirs. The Rhine has been crossed. Germany's final defense line is broken. In Berlin, Hitler's rage echoes through the bunker walls. His generals avert their eyes as he screams about impossible numbers, about factories churning out American tanks faster than they can be burned. He once mocked the Sherman, called it a rolling coffin. Now it's his army being buried. The tide of green steel rolls east, through Cologne, Kassel, and into the heart of the Reich. The Shermans, dusty and dented, carry not just soldiers but an entire nation's industrial might. For every tank lost, the American assembly lines in Detroit, Chicago, and Cleveland send another to take its place. The Shermans are no longer just machines, they are momentum, history, inevitability. As the Rhine fades behind them, the crews know the war's end is near. But the cost, the friends left burning in Normandy fields, the ones frozen in Ardennes snow, is etched in every man's silence. The Shermans keep rolling, and behind them, the shadow of the Third Reich crumbles. April 1945. The outskirts of Berlin. Smoke hangs low over the horizon. The once mighty capital of the Reich lies in ruins, a broken city filled with ash, silence, and the echoes of defeat. Soviet armor pushes from the east, while American forces, including countless Shermans, encircle from the west. For the men who began the campaign on the beaches of Normandy, this feels like another world. Lieutenant Mallory's unit, what's left of it, sits parked near the Elbe River, engines quiet, tracks covered in the dust of a conquered continent. Mallory climbs down from his tank and looks eastward. The sounds of artillery fade in the distance. A bird lands on the Sherman's cannon, unafraid. Finley leans against the hull. "You think it's over?" he asks softly. Mallory nods. For them, it's just starting. The war in Europe ends days later. When the German generals surrender, they're brought past rows of American Shermans, hundreds of them lined up, their engines idling, their paint chipped from months of war. Some German officers can't hide their disbelief. These were the tanks that defeated us? Not the most powerful, not the thickest armor, but they were always there, in every village, on every road, at every front. The Germans built marvels. The Americans built armies. And that, in the end, is what won the war. In the years that follow, the M4 Sherman becomes a symbol. It appears in parades, in museums, in the hands of soldiers around the world. Its story is told not in boasts of perfection, but in proof of endurance, a testament to the men who fought inside it and the factories that never stopped producing them. Hitler laughed when he first saw the Sherman. He called it a farmer's tank, too light, too crude, too common. But the truth was simple. While the Reich built monsters, America built momentum. And momentum, once unleashed, cannot be stopped. The laughter ended when the Shermans rolled through the Rhine. It ended when the tigers burned in the snow. And it ended, finally, when the flag of a free Europe was raised over Berlin. Because sometimes, history isn't written by the strongest machine. It's written by the one that never stopped moving forward.